You're doing a great job, John.
And I'm just starting the recording. So we are live on YouTube.
Can we go ahead and start?
Let's see.
Wait a minute.
Probably start. That makes sense.
Okay.
I've gotten everybody in.
This is CIC meeting for March 1st, 2021. Welcome everybody. Glad everyone here could make it. I guess our first present. No, do we have any public comments? I'm sorry.
We're all muted.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So you want me to call roll, John?
Yes, would you please?
Okay, I'm looking at the participants. We have 22, it seems, at this point. So I'm going to go through the neighborhoods, and if you're representing the neighborhood and you're not on this list that I have before me, please don't let me bypass you. Okay, so beginning with Barkley Hills, we have Dee Dee.
Present.
Is Carla with you, or is Carla here?
I'm here.
Good. In Kanema, we have Linda. Is Linda here? Or we have me. Okay. And then we go to Caulfield, and we have John.
Yes.
We go to Gaffney Lane, and we have Amy.
I'm here.
Good. And McLaughlin, we have Denise, or we have.
I'm here.
Okay, great. If Park Place, we have Steve.
Here.
Great. And we're waiting for Bob to show up. Yes? Or is Bob here yet? Okay. At Rivercrest, we have Karen.
Here.
Great. Tower Vista, we have Jeff.
Here.
Jeff. Great. And I believe that's our group. Did I miss anybody representing a neighborhood? Denise?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
in Caulfield, we also have Robert Malco. I don't know if he's on or not, but he's our second representative voting member.
Okay. But is he present today? Or
I don't know. I
tonight?
haven't heard.
Okay. And Denise McGriff, are you representing McLaughlin or?
No, I don't represent McLaughlin. I represent the city commission.
Okay, fine. Okay,
The other Denise is here, the more famous Denise.
okay, okay. That's it.
Yeah, my name is Harold, and I'm representing Hazel Grove.
Oh, great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Great.
And Jody is here from Hazel Grove.
Jody? Okay. I believe that's it, John.
Okay, sounds good. Now let me go back down. Do we have any public comments before we get into our presentations? Okay, then City of Commerce is Representative Victoria Menig, I believe it's pronounced, or something like that. Please do your presentation.
Wonderful. Good evening, everyone. I'm Victoria Meinig. I'm from the Chamber of Commerce. I'm just here to kind of tell you what's going on, what we've been up to lately. So as of our last visit, I mentioned that we were going to be starting a business recovery center. That was with CARES Act money through Clackamas County. So for the month of December and January, we were able to help all small businesses, to invite all small businesses to come and get some support with things like PPE, with assistance in getting grants, and with some consultation in supporting them through this pandemic. So currently we are on pause. We have been told that our contract with the county will be extended through June. So we're still waiting for a new contract on that, but we're pretty excited. We realized we were only able to touch a small amount of people, and we have a lot more to go. As you know, we're going to be seeing lots of changes and lots of repercussions from what we've been through in the last 12 months. So there's still a lot more work to go, but we're pretty excited to be able to get to do that. I want to be able to invite you all. We are going to be doing some fundraising for the Chamber of Commerce. We are going to have a happy hour and auction on March 10th from 4:30 to 5:30. We'd love you all to attend. It's going to be on Facebook, so please join us if you can. And then our annual directory is going to be coming out at the end of March. This directory is used as a tourism piece and will be located at the elevator, the library, and of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center. It also gets mailed out to every person in Oregon City and all businesses in Oregon City, and then can also be picked up at places like Grocery Outlet and other locations that carry our directory. This is also used as an economic development piece. We now know that there are companies that use this directory to help them entice professionals to come work in our area. So if you haven't had a chance to see one of our directories before, please make sure that so we'd love to have more people involved in that. And that happens every year. And now this year, as of this year, we'll be switching that to have to go out in March of every year. And that's about all I have for right now, unless anybody has any questions.
No questions?
Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Victoria.
Thank you.
Thanks for explaining what's going on right now. Okay, our second presentation is going to be Forest, also in Forest Ridge. There's Forest Ridge emergency annexation. We have David Hayes. Dave Hayes presenting that. Is he here?
Yes.
Okay, great. Floor is yours.
We're Clackamas County, our side of the street. We're doing an addition to our home, septic system, city sewer right across the street. So we're being required to do annexation due to connect into city sewer. We are not looking for any zone change at this time. Nothing. We want to stay the county FU10 zoning. And that's pretty much where we're at, just a simple annexation.
Thanks, Dave. This is Christina. I've been helping Dave with the pre-application conference and submittal information. This is an emergency annexation. And so therefore, it goes straight to the City Commission at a public hearing this spring. This was the last requirement for his completeness materials. The South End Neighborhood Association is not currently meeting, so that may require Mr. Hay to meet with the CIC. As he said there, he is not proposing any zone changes. He'll be requesting the emergency annexation and staying under FU10, which means no additional development for the site until such time it's rezoned.
Does anyone have any questions? Karen?
Yeah, Christina, do we need a motion of any sort?
No, this was just a neighborhood meeting. So it was really a check the box that Mr. Hayes met with the CIC who take the place of the neighborhood association and answer any questions the CIC may have.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
You too.
Bye-bye. Okay, next on the agenda is the Oregon City Behavioral Health Specialist, Valentina, Yuga, or not sure I pronounced the name correctly.
It's Muja.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, it's all yours.
Yeah, and it's Valentina Muja, and I'm the behavioral health specialist with Oregon City Police Department. I have been, just want to talk to you and let you know what my role is with Oregon City and kind of see if you guys have any question about the new position. A little bit about me personally. I've been in the field of mental health for over 20 years. I know I'm aging myself. I am a licensed clinical social worker. And I've been doing this kind of job, crisis intervention in the field for about 10 years now. And I was with Clackamas County Behavioral Health. I was embedded with the Sheriff Department for the past 6 years. And then when Oregon City opened up this position, so I've been working with Oregon City, I've been responding to Oregon City, but the police department felt that we needed to have somebody here present all the time. And so that is kind of my role. My role is to respond on scene at the request of officers when we have someone that is experiencing mental health. And we know that going to jail is not the best option for them. And so my role really is to divert them from jail whenever possible and connect them to the hospital and connect them to services. So that is kind of my major role, so to speak, but I also do a lot of follow-up. I get to review any and all Oregon City Police Department reports that include mental health, and I get to actually reach out to the family and provide support, not only to the person that is experiencing mental health, but as well to their family, their friends, or anybody. And then furthermore, I get the amazing opportunity to provide mental health training not only to Oregon City PD, but also to the city of Oregon City. So places like the library, the pool, anywhere where there might be clients who are experiencing, for one reason or another, some sort of mental health crisis. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I do. I'm 40 hours a week dedicated to this position, and in case of emergency, I can even be called out.
Amy, you have a question?
I do. Thank you. If we had a concern, someone notified me in my neighborhood, they were driving down 99E in between Oregon and City and Canby, and there was a gentleman in the middle, just not quite in the road, but right there.
Mm-hmm.
And about 3 cars pulled over, called, the first one called 911, the other 2 called the non-emergency number. All were told there's nothing we can do. We've gone out and talked to him. He's not in the road. And that was it. And it was very disturbing because I thought that was the role that we have, a liaison officer and yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When someone's out, is that a normal reaction if we someone in our neighborhood calls and is just
It's not a normal reaction at all. So it depends. It sounds to me that they had already approached him, and for whatever reason, I was not part of that, so I don't want to speculate on that. But for whatever reason, he did not meet criteria. Now, we are very, very limited in what we can do against the person's will. Our services, of course, and the willingness to engage in our services is voluntary. We cannot force somebody to engage in our services. And in the event that on occasion, I'm able to place the person on what we call a designate hold, which is a transport hold that allow for the person to be transported from wherever they are to the hospital. But the criteria for that are pretty strict because you can imagine I'm taking away the civil liberty of somebody. So I have to have specific criteria that I need to meet, mainly like a danger to self or other. Now, I am sorry that you were responded there was nothing they could do for them. That would be a perfect scenario for me to be called out. So
that's what I felt.
Yeah.
They said he had refused help, which that's his right. But when they're standing on the middle of this, almost into the, that's a highway. That's so dangerous. And we just felt so bad. I felt bad for my neighbors calling me. I felt bad for the people in that situation, worried that somebody could get hit. And I wondered what better answer I could give them, or what, if they notice something like that in the future, is there a way when they call dispatch, keywords they could say or something they can share to maybe help trigger a different response?
Yeah, I think say anything to the regard that it looks like he might be experiencing some mental health symptoms. It looks like that he's like disoriented. That something that will trigger the behavioral health, the idea of a behavioral health specialist. Might be useful. Do you know what time and day it was?
It was in an afternoon. I'd have to look back and see what, but he was just screaming and yelling at the cars as they drove by, and it was just a sad situation.
Was it recently, or was it like?
Yeah, it was in the past month.
In the past month, how interesting. Okay.
Let me see if I can.
Yeah.
Look back, but I don't want to tie up all the time. It
No,
was just such a sad situation. I thought we were missing the mark.
And it was within the Oregon City jurisdiction.
Well, I don't know exactly where the line is when you're on Highway 99 between Oregon City and Canby. They said the dispatcher told them that Oregon State Trooper had responded.
Oh, that's
And so
why.
I told the neighbors I said, we'll call and ask for Oregon City's help.
Yeah, so that's what it is. So that makes more sense to me. I was a little worried that I had not been called on. So my services at the moment, my services are specific to Oregon City, which means that it has to be within Oregon City jurisdiction. I think the 99, you're absolutely right. There is a spot that is Oregon City, and then it becomes, well, the state trooper has jurisdiction over everything, but I think that is part of it is Clackamas County, and then it goes into Canby. Unfortunately, I think that Oregon State might not be familiar with the use of behavioral health specialists, but Clackamas County and Oregon City and Canby should all be aware.
Right.
I think that in this case, if it's the Oregon State that respond, remind them that Oregon City has the behavioral specialist. I don't mind stepping out a little bit over jurisdiction if I can help the situation, for sure.
Right. I mean, the neighbors that were calling thought it was still in Oregon City, but again, when it's on a highway, it's a,
Yeah, it looks like that
You
it
know.
said it was unincorporated Clackamas County. Somebody just typed that.
okay.
So perhaps that's
Yeah.
why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No,
So Dee Dee and Carla have a question as well.
My name is Dee Dee, and Victoria, thank you very much for all your hard work. We have a young man who's been in our neighborhood for all of his whole life. His first name is Frederick. I don't know Frederick's last name, but he currently is living in the burnt out house on Malala Avenue next to Chacho's. He's been living there. He was actually the one who burnt down the house. He's been in and out of jail. He's now continually living behind the house in a tent. I can't send a picture of it to the police department because I'm blocked, or I can't send photos through. He builds little fires back there. It's been reported over 50 times. And we know that he has a mental illness, but he is dangerous. And he was at my door the other day, but that was beside the point. But anyway, we can't report him anymore because nothing's being done. What do we do about this young man?
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that I'm Valentina, so I just want to make sure that if you address anything to me or email.
Oh, Valentina, I'm sorry, I called you
No,
Victoria.
that's okay.
So sorry.
Make sure that people don't bombard Victoria with questions that she might not have an answer for. But so here's the deal. It's really surprising, but we have a very large population of homeless people here in Oregon City, and we are, there is a huge trust issue in the community. And although it might seem that nothing is getting done, in order to engage them in services, right, we need to build that trust. So consistent reporting, we are going out, we're trying to make contact, we're trying to connect them with all the services in Clackamas County. But again, at least my role is not to come in as a punitive role, it's actually the opposite, right? And really build that trust and the relationship that might take a really long time. So what I can tell you is that we might not see immediate results, but maybe 6 months from now, 8 months from now, months from now, we're able to connect the person. Sometimes we have to send them to the hospital multiple times. Sometimes we have to start the process all over multiple times, and I can really.
Okay, I get it. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate your help.
Hi, my name's Carla Laws. I am in Barclay Hills also. My question for you is, if we are in long-term kind of looking at you helping out us in our neighborhoods, for instance, and we're looking at Malala Avenue and the old historic districts with the old neighborhoods, the old churches that help out, what are some plans in the future that you're looking at doing to intervene? Just a few things. Like, I just want to understand the process here. Are you going to do as needed when called, or are you planning some interventions in the future for our neighborhoods in terms of, because in Barclay Hills, we're pretty active at times on Malala Avenue, and I was wondering if you have any plans for that.
So first of all, it's just me, okay? And we're kind of first of just started to see what the needs is and how, you know, we average about, like today, there was like 5 or 6 calls that I was able to respond to. There are a lot of other organizations like the LEAD, like with Clackamas County, that are working with, they received a grant for housing. So my job is really to identify the people that I can hopefully connect with a program that can fund permanent housing for these people. You know, so that is really how I envision my role for now. I would like eventually to have multiple people so that we can do more than just a patching and putting a Band-Aids on a big wound, but just really provide case manager and ongoing case manager.
That sounds great. I was just wondering too, because we do showers for people in need at Milner on every Sunday. Are you planning on possibly helping them? Because Love One has been doing a job on trying to reach out to them too. People coming there in need and trying to give them resources. Is that something maybe you'd want to come into and help them, or separate time? Or
so help them. I can provide the information. So that's more of a role of a case manager, right?
Okay.
I work Monday through Thursday right now, like 7 to 5.
Okay.
So
thank you so much.
But I want to maybe put out my information and my email. So if anybody has any question on specific cases, you can always reach out to me, you know, because it's easier if I can respond at the moment rather than respond like 2 or 3 days later to make contact with the person.
Thank you.
Valentina, this is Christina. If you want to send an introductory email, I can forward it on to everybody in the CIC mailing list tomorrow.
That'd be great. Thank you. I'll do that.
And then Mike Mitchell had a question. Maybe you've answered it in the chat about your relationship to the percentage of your cases that are in the homeless population in Oregon City. Let's see if I can read it. Mike, would you want to have add on to that question?
No, I was just curious. I mean, we all know we have a terrible situation with the homeless population, and I was just curious of, in the short time that you've been on the job, what percentage of the calls that you're involved with is to deal with individuals who are homeless?
Who are homeless?
Yes.
Yeah, it's actually a very small percentage. You know, my focus really is on the people that are experiencing mental health in their home. I want to say that probably maybe 10% of my calls right now are related to the homeless people. We have a lot of reach out to our elderly community, our young kids as well. You know, in Clackamas County, we have the highest suicide rate from the Tri-County area, and our rate per se in Clackamas County is higher than the national. So a lot of work is done with family and young kids as well. Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
I believe Dennis has a question.
Yes, I was curious about has a procedure changed? Your intervention sounds good, and I think it's great that you're on board. In respect to our neighborhoods, when we come upon a situation that's been described, are we still to call the police? And then
you can call non-emergency, right? And let them know.
So are we going to direct our interest, or what is the procedure if it has changed?
The procedure has not changed, right? When I put somebody on a custody, I have to give custody to the police. So I'm going to have an officer coming out with me anyway. So you just call the non-emergency, except the difference is that I get dispatched directly with police. And so instead of having necessarily like a uniformed person be the one doing and provide the service and trying to build the relationship, I can be the one in civilian clothes and say, listen, you're not going to jail. I really wanted to provide services for you and start building that relationship. Okay, but the procedure is the same. Just call non-emergency or 911 if it is an emergency.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Bob. Am I on? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. We're going to have to move along here. We've got quite a bit to cover.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I would like to interrupt. I apologize for my computer problems. Everything works fine until I get on a CIC meeting, then for some reason it starts asking me all kinds of questions. But I intended to open this meeting with a recognition of the people who have volunteered in the inactive neighborhood associations to attempt to get them activated. Several months ago, you authorized me to send a letter out, the funding to send a letter out to all the residents of the non-active associations. And the responses we've received have just been phenomenal. I'm absolutely delighted with the responses. The Hillendale and Tower Vista neighborhoods have already selected their chairs and are having joint meetings. And at this time, I'd like to recognize those individuals who responded from the neighborhoods. First is Hazel Grove Westling Farms, Harold Acevedo, Jody Chandler, and Cyrus Zamani. And please forgive me if I don't pronounce your names correctly. Hillendale, we have Eric Hopwood, who is their newly elected chair, Dave Lee, Sarah Peterson, Judy Schrader, Mindy Smoke, and Adam Zagel.
Wow.
From South End, we have Reagan Olesko, Robert Davis, Doug D. Hart, Bonnie Espy, Catherine Costo, and Saren Risco. And from Tower Vista, we have Jeff Aiken, who is their newly elected chair. Congratulations. Nicole Last, Kayla McCall, and Angela Whitbeck. And from Two Rivers, Michael Stoll. So we'll be working with those people and continuing their organizational efforts to get their neighborhoods up and running and hopefully joining the CIC. So thank you so much for your interest in taking part in your communities. It's really appreciated.
That's a fantastic job, Bob. You guys worked really well. It's really helping.
Oh yeah, I'm glad we've. It's gonna make the CIC so much better with representation from each neighborhood. And the reason I wanted to recognize those people, especially tonight, is because I sent them all invitations for tonight's meeting. I don't know if any of them are on or not, but welcome to our meetings, and this is how they usually go, except for me getting goofy on my computer. Okay, so we'll move on to item number 4, suggested charter changes from Mike Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair LaSalle. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for letting me talk to you for a few minutes. My name is Mike Mitchell. I live in Oregon City, and I want to make it clear before I start that I do serve on the Planning Commission, but I am speaking tonight just for myself and not on behalf of the Planning Commission. The agenda says suggested charter changes, but I want to make it clear that's not really what I'm proposing. What I'm proposing is, and asking the CIC for support, is on a charter review process. I don't have the answers. There are things in our charter and the way we go about doing our business as a city that I think don't make a lot of sense. And there are better alternatives. And of course, I have some ideas on those, but I'm not really here tonight to try to put forward my ideas. I'm just asking tonight for the CIC to consider asking the City Commission to begin a process to review our city charter and to do that as soon as possible. And why I think it's important right now, and this kind of ties in with what Chair LaSalle just said, I think right now in Oregon City, we're seeing an interest in city government that we haven't seen for a long time, whether it's individuals stepping up on inactive neighborhood associations, the people that got involved in the recall, the people that are involved and decided to run for mayor. I just think there's more interest now in what's going on in city government than we've had, especially with younger people, which is doubly terrific. And so I don't want to let this opportunity pass without stepping back and taking a look at how we go about our business. And the two areas that really jump out at me, one relates to how we elect city commissioners. The idea of having people decide to run for a particular position rather than having one list. I've not had anyone be able to tell me, and I've asked a lot of people why it was set up the way it was, because you can have a situation where, depending on who decides to run against whom, it's entirely possible that the voters of Oregon City can't choose their two favorite people because they're running against each other. So I think that's something that needs to be reviewed. Is there a better way to do that? The other thing, and I know this is at the bone of contention with Chair LaSalle, and that has to do with how we choose members of advisory boards and committees, and the Planning Commission and the Historic Review Board. Those last two in particular, the Planning Commission and the Historic Review Board, because those two are making decisions that directly affect people's lives. The others are advisory, so maybe they're in a slightly different category. But to me, you know, we have 5 city commissioners or 4 commissioners and a mayor for a reason. You know, 5 opinions are better than one, and a consensus of 5 people may get us to a better group of individuals serving on those committees than we get from the mayor alone making those selections. And it also takes out some of the personal issues that I think have been an issue in the past. So, and I also know that the city commissioners, I've heard them bring up a couple of other issues with our charter, one relating to gender pronouns. He and him is used throughout our charter. And the other thing, there's a lot of vagueness in terms of office, term limitations, I should say. It refers to serving for 8 of the last 10 years, but does that mean full calendar years? Does that mean part of a year? Is it 365 days? It's not really clearly spelled out and needs to be. And I think there are probably other items in our charter that need to be reviewed as well. I'm sure you probably all know this, but very quickly, our charter, the only way to revise our charter is with a vote of the people. There are 2 ways to get that items on the ballot. One is by a referendum process or an initiative, which means signature gathering, which of course is still very difficult to do. And the other is if the city commission brings changes forward to put on the ballot. And that's what I'm asking the CIC to discuss tonight, that the idea would be for Chair LaSalle to write a letter to the City Commission on behalf of the CIC, encouraging the City Commission as soon as possible to begin a public process to review our charter and put forward possible revisions to the voters as soon as possible. And that could involve an ad hoc committee, online surveys. We had tremendous results with the online survey from the OC 2040 project. Again, I think that's another thing that reflects on how interested people are in Oregon City government. Anyway, as I said, I have ideas that how I think things could be better, what would be better ways to do what we do. But what I know for sure is what we're doing now, to me, is not the best. And I would love to see a public process. And I would love to see the CIC, and of course the CIC would have representation on that committee, I would believe. CIC authorized Chair LaSalle to write a letter to the City Commission encouraging beginning this process of charter revision, charter review, and possible changes as soon as possible. That's all I have right now. I would love, I saw that Commissioner McGriff is on the line, and Commissioner McGriff, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I would love to know what your thoughts are on that, and if you can share anything about what you think the other commissioners might feel on these ideas, or on the idea of a review process.
Sorry, I was out of the room. I only heard the last half of the question. I apologize. You said someone wanted to know what my thoughts were about your proposal?
About the idea of a charter review process.
Well, obviously, I'm only speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for the other commissioners. It has not been in the top 10 discussion items that we've been talking about for the last 2 or 3 months in terms of our goals. It was discussed very briefly, and I'm assuming we will have further discussions, but that's all I can really tell you right now. Sorry.
I can interject something there. I know for a fact that approximately 6 years ago, during the city commission meetings, 2 city commissioners were tasked to review the city charter. That was Kathy Roth and Betty Mumm. And I kind of followed up on that a little bit, asked what was going on. I was told they were actively getting started on it, and nothing ever came of it. So it has been brought up before, but no active participation from any of the designated commissioners. So is there any discussion about this? Any movement to have a letter written, or where should we go from here? I'm open for suggestions.
Bob, this is Karen. Mike, I disagree with one point you made. The charter was revised for inclusive language, and I don't remember exactly how long ago, but I was just doubling back on something and I found like a section that said the city manager and his/her discretion. That's basically been taken care of. The rest of it you're proposing is interesting, but it definitely would take some discussion because it's a different way of doing things. That's all.
Anybody else?
And that discussion is all that I'm suggesting.
Am I on?
Go ahead.
I think this would be an excellent idea. Seems like we'd set up for better relations. If you are running against commissioners, you're running not against someone, you're simply running for a position. I think that might take away any animosity that might come, not that they have any animosities, but it could happen in the past. I think it's an excellent idea to have that process there. And I would love to vote for it or have more discussion for it.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Can you see the hands raised on your computer? I have my hand up. So is somebody else who says iPhone. You may not be able to see that.
I think Dennis has his hand up.
Yeah, no, somebody else does too. I mean, I had my hand up and somebody else does, but whoever's on the iPhone.
Okay. Well,
please
I believe that's
whoever it is on the iPhone.
I believe that's Dee Dee.
If it's Dee Dee, then she can go ahead and then I'll go after her.
Go ahead, Dee Dee.
Dee Dee.
Got no response. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay, just to be clear, Mike, I'm not saying that it's a bad idea or any sort. I think it's an interesting concept to talk about. We're in the process of finalizing our goals so that we can begin the budget process. The commission is aware that it was discussed previously when you made a presentation or a comment at the last CIC meeting, and I will bring it up again. We've been through, as you are aware, some really, well, we're probably not over it yet, but we're still dealing with some crazy times going on right now and with everything going on. And, I will say that having just run for office, I wasn't running against anyone. I was running for a specific position. So I never looked at it as an adversarial sort of thing, but I know other people may. But I will make this promise that I will bring it up at our next work session and see if they want to put it on the schedule.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Dennis, you had your hand up?
I have a comment. I think it's an excellent idea to create an ad hoc group and to discuss this. I agree with Michael. I think with the concerns that we went through the last week, I, for one, was without power, and I'm not alone. It it came to me very quickly that I wanted a better communication. I wanted better representation from the city commission on getting the word out on what is going on and how long you would be out of power. And while you have people running around in your neighborhood, doing the best they can under the circumstances, the neighbors are always left out of this communication. I think it's time for the review to consider having commission members represent neighborhoods. Now, whether that's one commission for 3 neighborhoods or however you want to break it out, but I think there's a way to get a better communicative line out to the chairs of the neighborhoods and get the information out when it is timely, like this last week when we went through, a week or more of a blackout, not knowing when the power would be returned, not knowing when or what they could do with the tree removal and brush. And I think this just shows that we need some kind of like top-down consideration on getting a better communication to the neighborhoods. And I don't think the CIC is, I think it's a great place, but I think we got to help get the information back out to the neighborhoods to help them alleviate these times of crisis and explain to them the process and how long it could be before they are to return to their normalcy. And so I know I'm going on, but I think perhaps in this review or in this group of discussion, maybe in the charter, there's a way to determine commissioners representing the voice of neighborhoods, whether they group them up in 2 or 3. And I think we have an imbalance right now in the commission on neighborhoods that are represented. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Anybody else with comments? Okay, I think we have 2 things that we need to consider here. Number 1 is we need a motion to have a letter written under my signature to encourage the city commission to begin the process, the public process to review our city charter as soon as possible. Would anybody like to make a motion to have that letter written?
I will make a motion to have Bob LaSalle write a letter to the city commission in support of suggested charter change.
I second Carla Laws, Barclay Hills.
Okay, let's see here. Bear with me here a moment. Linda, was that you that made the motion?
That was me, Bob.
Okay, thank you. Linda made the motion and Carla seconded the motion to draft a letter. Mike, would you?
I think Amy has a question.
Would you maybe send me a draft of a letter that you would have in mind?
I have one. I'll send it to you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. And then let's see. The other consideration was to have the CIC form an ad hoc committee for a city charter review. And do I have any interest?
Bob, don't we need to have discussion on the motion and vote on that first motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
I have before I could feel comfortable to vote on that, I would need it very clear. Obviously, we're not asking them to review the whole charter. And so I would want it very clear in our vote what exactly we were asking them to review.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that'd be quite a job trying to review the whole charter. Okay, let's see. Karen.
Yeah, Bob, I'm with Amy. I think this is cart before the horse. I like the idea of CIC forming a charter review committee and coming up with more specifics. At this point, I wouldn't be in favor of writing the letter since it doesn't really drill down to anything specific.
Right. Okay, thank you. Dennis?
I agree. I agree with Karen.
Okay. Let's see here. I have another hand up, but I don't see anybody on it. Any other comments?
Bob, this is Christina. I actually have a clarification question. I think Mike Mitchell was discussing a charter review ad hoc group that would be part of, like, the city commission would create it. That's how normally you do a city. If the city commission chose to present a slate of charter amendments to the voters, usually it comes out of an ad hoc group that then makes a presentation to the city commission. So if the CIC did an ad hoc group, would it be kind of recommendations to the city commission, but they would probably then create their own group at some point? So I'm just curious how the CIC ad hoc group would intersect with any public engagement the city commission would do.
Yeah, that's a good point. It gets a little dicey here. I could see now maybe the better route would be to have me send a letter to the city commission requesting that they form an ad hoc committee. Am I on the right path here? Christina?
Well, I think if my recommendation as staff is if there's a vote for the CIC to send a letter to the city commission, most likely the city commission would be the ones creating the ad hoc committee, and the CIC would have a strong role in that. Most likely would be, to me, the best way to involve the CIC in any proposed ad hoc charter review process.
Well, let's see. I wonder how we should word that then.
Maybe my recommendation is first to see if there's discussion on the motion that's on the table, which is to have a letter. So I think maybe the first step is determine if there's consensus at the CIC level. So maybe a vote on just the concept of a letter. And then after that can be a discussion of what should be in the letter. I don't know, or a concept of should the CIC provide any direction to this?
Thank you for your guidance on that, Christina. Karen, did you have further comments?
I did, and I'm going to try not to bore you the rest of the night with the history of charter changes in this city. However, I can relate them to you. I agree with Christina, but there seem to be some specific points that Mike is making. And one of the things, in the past, we've had wards that were designated geographic areas, and you elected a counselor or commission person from each ward. There also is a new movement nationwide on top vote getters. I agree with him about not necessarily needing to run against each other, since each position doesn't have any identity, and maybe going to a top 4 wouldn't be a bad idea. That is something I think we could look at and make a recommendation to the commission. I'm not sure, Mike, correct me, were you talking about revamping the entire charter or just a couple specific areas where we could make some recommendations?
Well, let me just read you. This is the draft from the draft of the letter that I would be sending to Bob tomorrow. And what I wrote in here, obviously for Bob's review and approval and alteration, charter revisions for provisions for possible revision could include: 1, method by which city commissioners are elected; 2, method by which volunteer positions on all or some city boards and commissions are filled; 3, any other provisions brought forth by the city commission or any provisions which arise during the public process. So it's a little open, because I don't know what, none of us know what might come up out of a public process. There may be another part of the charter that looks like it needs to be reviewed, but it wouldn't necessarily be a review of the whole charter. I think that would be up to the group. And again, I want to make it clear, I'm not trying to put forth solutions. I'm trying to point out, hey, I think we've got some problems, and I think we could do things better. And I think we need a study group, a public process, surveys, whatever we can do to come up with better solutions than what we have. That's all.
Okay, at this point, I think what I'd like to do, rather than try to get this passed tonight, because there are several questions up front here, is Mike, you send me that letter, the draft, and anybody else that has any suggestions, please email me for suggestions. And then at the next CIC meeting, I'll bring up the whole issue in an organized manner. Because I don't see any big need for a big rush for this to go forward.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
There's a motion on the floor. Unless the maker of the motion and the second wish to withdraw that motion, you need to vote on the motion.
I was going to make that comment too. Thank you, William.
Thank you for that.
I can withdraw mine at this point, Carla from Barclay Hills, until we have more information. If you want to take some time to go through it, maybe get some suggestions, I think that'd be a great idea. And I can withdraw my motion, my second motion.
I made the motion and I would like to keep it on the floor. We need to move. I mean, we can talk this stuff to death, but if we don't start making some movement, nothing happens. So I would like to see some action happening. And I would like to keep my motion on the floor and vote. See how everyone else really feels about it. Take the temperature of the room.
Do we have an additional second for that motion?
Clarification question. Linda, is your motion with specifics to what Mike is saying, or is your motion just a general letter?
Just to have a letter written to the commission asking them to change the charter that only involves how we elect commissioners, and make some changes in only that part of the charter. The way Mike has suggested, yes.
Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Sorry, Linda, but was the motion also the part about appointing to committees, or were you not wanting to address that?
Well, I was just talking about writing the letter. If the commission wants to go forward with this, perhaps they would appoint committees to study this and see how it could be done and languages that should be in. I think there would probably be some type of an attorney or some type of a legal language that would have to go for the review as this. And I don't think the CIC is quite up to that, but this is simply just a motion, a letter to put on the commission's table to do. Denise said this wasn't one of their top 10. Well, why can't it be number 11 if it can't be the 10? I just don't see why this can't be up there.
Dennis?
No, I agree.
Oh, you had your hand up. Karen?
I'm going to play parliamentarian. The motion is deficient. Linda needs to state specifically what it is that she has moved.
I would like the CIC to write a letter in support of Mike Mitchell's suggested charter changes.
Review.
So I would write a letter encouraging the city commission to begin the public process to review our city charter in relation to Mike Mitchell's suggestions.
Yes.
Would that suffice?
Yeah, a beginning.
Yeah. Okay, we can now have a vote on that. So
Should I call
Dennis, it's up to you.
Okay, calling the roll from the neighborhoods. Barkley Hills, Dee Dee,
Aye.
Carla,
If we're writing a letter, aye.
Linda.
Aye.
I also say aye. Caulfield, John.
Aye.
Gaffney Lane, Amy.
I, as long as it doesn't have a specified ASAP time on it.
McLaughlin, Denise.
No.
Steve from Park Place.
Aye.
Bob from Park Place.
Aye.
Hazel Grove, Harry. We have Harry. Rivercrest, Karen.
No.
Tower Vista, Jeff.
Aye.
I believe that's all, unless I missed somebody.
Point of order, have those last two actually been approved CIC members?
Good point. I am not a voting member for Tower Vista.
Correct.
They have not been.
Okay. So what do we have?
Looks like the motion passed.
Yep.
So I will draft, Mike, you send me that letter and I'll draft a letter to the commission and bring it before the CIC at the next meeting and we'll go forward.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is mitigation funding by Jerry Herman. And Jerry, I didn't write you a letter, but please, we are at our closing time usually, so try to keep it brief. Are you there, Jerry? Maybe you're muted.
I didn't mute myself. I don't know how that happened.
Okay, there you are.
Can you hear me now? Everybody hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Christine and I talked about this. I have 15 slides because it's a complicated issue that I want to make it clear to people, but it's a real opportunity. It will take me 15 minutes to do this. I hope you can bear with that. The North End District is what I want to talk about now of Oregon City. And the North End District is comprised of mostly everything from the I-205 bridge down to the confluence of the Willamette and Clackamas rivers up to High Rocks, a basaltic flow that impedes the Clackamas River and where it would want to go. And so I'm going to discuss this. And downriver from this picture is the problem. Governor Kitzhaber, in his wisdom many years ago, saw the Environmental Protection Agency beginning to be requested to come after all the industrial users of the lower harbor below the Broadway Bridge to the Columbia is 15 miles of industrial uses. Many of those uses from World War II had impacts on the river ecology, the bottom sediments, things like that. Long and short of it, he was hoping to see that EPA would not be called in to make a Superfund site out of the lower harbor. It was a bad stigma for Northern Oregon. So he worked with people in the industrial sector and the Port of Portland agencies, Portland Development Commission and others that were trying to develop land, come up with a strategy that they would voluntarily get involved in putting together a trust fund, a fund of money that would help them solve their problems of revegetation, removing contaminated sediments in the lower Portland Harbor, et cetera, or in some way solving their problems so that EPA wouldn't come in. Kurt Schrader, our congressman from the 5th District, he felt that EPA was getting more and more involved. He could see it coming. And so he advanced that to a point that the folks would have a chance in the lower harbor the last 15 miles below the Broadway Bridge to the Columbia, to invest in other properties, including the cleanup of theirs, but not to the point they could not use them for industrial development purposes. And so, guess what? The Superfund district was established, and it's a mitigation area that includes everything from the Columbia River up the Willamette through Milwaukee, Lake Oswego, Westland to, guess what? Willamette Falls. Next slide. Christine.
I'm working on 1 second.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I had to give you that background because it sets the tone for what really is kind of an amazing situation that's come together.
Yeah, apologies. I'm my poor.
We need to buy you a new computer.
Yeah, here we go. I'm gonna have to scroll for you.
Okay. John Williams, Mayor Williams in 2002 was approached about master planning for waterfront development in Oregon City. And John, I think like some of you might agree today, wanted to see a plan that was adopted and became ordinance adopted and became a part of the record of Oregon City. And so the waterfront master plan began to look at things from Willamette Falls all the way past the Abernathy Bridge, I-205 bridge, to the Clackama on up the river, clear up to High Rocks and so forth. This plan has existed since 2002. Next slide. Okay, what am I talking about here? The North End District is the north section of Oregon City. It includes Clackman Park, Washington Street, and the landfill, end of the Oregon Trail as an asset, Clackman Cove, another asset that we hope to see finally completed, Metro South Transfer Station, which is important for its services that it provides, improvements that this city, Christine and others led the champion of improvements to access and transportation connection, jug handle, wetlands were built. I know Dee Dee cares about these things, so do I. 12 acres of beautiful wetlands exist. They're fenced, and a bird can't even get through it. They can fly over the top, but a terrestrial animal cannot. They're off limits, and we wonder why. Trails from Clackman Cove and Clackman Park could proceed on into Washington Street, things of that nature. Okay, next slide. 500 acres we're talking about, okay, in that area I just described. Okay, the method here is that a city or entity, it can be private developers too. I know there's developers in Oregon City now looking at this since I did this program for the Oregon City Business Alliance. Anyone can bring together an effort to establish a district where funds that would have been expended in downtown Portland on industrial lands can be used in areas of improvement all the way to Willamette Falls. In the various cities I mentioned to you, those funds can be used to, and they're funds that flow somewhat more or less free to the entity to hire professionals to assess what can be done, what are the needs. They involve the agencies, which is very important, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, State Lands Division, NOAA. We could go on and on. There are 20 some agencies that quite often get involved in water related kinds of areas like we have here in Oregon City. Those professionals represent the interests of, say, Oregon City or Gladstone or Westland to those agencies to make sure that what is being proposed meets their support, their approval. Then it doesn't become an issue later on. A mitigation bank, which exists in this area with $500 million in it right now, is then approached to see if the project, say in Oregon City, we'll talk about what we could do, for instance, meets the criteria, and monies will start flowing in to hire those professional design experts that know how to do this kind of stuff, to let the contracts and manage them in concert with the city, but primarily doing it for the city. The projects may involve youth, which is of course my interest. I'd love to see many, many hundreds of Oregon City youth involved in these projects. Trails, habitat, recreational improvements are all eligible kinds of things, and development areas as long as there's a wildlife benefit that would occur. All right, the mitigation projects then are maintained in perpetuity. What does that mean? Well, I guess until Jesus comes. It means it has to be for a long time, literally 100 years or more. They have to be maintained by the trust fund. the funds that come out of the mitigation bank. And then the communities that agree to do these things, including developers, if they own the land, can get a host fee. Gladstone is getting about $500,000 a year because they've made some improvements. Next slide. Okay, what are some of the areas? Quickly, these are some pictures here where you see the red dots are areas that have targeted values that would be really good for a mitigation district. The mitigation district here involving Clackman Cove, to the top of that slide, Clackama Park, improvements along the waterfront, Sportcraft Landing, etc. Washington Street improvements, including the landfill as an example, are eligible project areas. This district, where we happen to sit at, the confluence of two rivers, the Clackama and Willamette, give the greatest opportunity for the biggest district in Oregon if we were to work on this project. Next slide. I want to show you this. 1990, 30 years ago, this was the plan for Clackman Cove. This is the plan for Clackman Cove. The area around the shopping center showed multifamily, or I should say, housing of some type, apartments of that nature. It shows I-205 kind of running down diagonally, and of course, wetlands that were possible to be built, and then the landfill. This concept plan was done by the county, who felt that there needed to be a master plan. They did this plan for Oregon City in concert with the development of the end of the Oregon Trail. This is 1990 plan. This is 2021. Next slide. The city in 2016, I met and got to know the developer of the Cove, Mr. Dahl, quite well. And I proposed this kind of concept to him because I was the chairman of Gladstone's Park and Recreation committee, and they were being approached by entities out of Portland to do these kind of things I've just talked about. So I took this to Tony Conkle and other people in the city, and the city then initiated a Clackman Cove water quality study, which cost $50,000, that identified all the problems in the Cove. There's nothing in the Cove that is not related in terms of how to deal with it, in terms of concept and the problem identified in this plan. This set the stage for what we could do. Next slide. In the Cove, as you know, or you probably know, the water quality is kind of a mess because in the past, the opening of the Cove, which is at the top left, has gotten plugged with gravel and resources basically cascading into the river over time. And so water cannot come in and out easily with the tide. The tide used to keep it clean. This is called Clackman Cove. I always call this Lifeland Lagoon. It's an amazing thing what goes on in here. Lamprey eel come in here and spawn and live here for up to 7 years because it's just the right habitat, quiet water habitat for them. Trout, crappie, bluegill, and of course salmon and steelhead are in here as well because they come in here for feeding purposes and rearing. But in order to make it a better circulation situation, there might have to be some changes made. There have been many talks about dredging the channel to the Cove. The question was, where do you put the gravel? Some agencies said, we'll take it down to the Willamette River and dump it in there. Unfortunately, they identified the navigation channel right off of Clackman Park for where they dumped the gravel. In fact, it could go on the inside of the Cove here and shallow up some areas for habitat improvement, thus making the water circulate. This is just a concept that came from that waterfront master plan. Next slide. Okay, what have others gotten? City of Portland, over 1,000 acres have been improved with their EPA now managed system. I didn't make my connection there. EPA did get involved and has jurisdiction over that 15-mile area. They agreed with Governor Kitzhaber that there should be a way to encourage the people not to fight among lawyers and landowners for control, but instead to make their investments in improving the lands. So underwater lands in Portland, riverbanks, all the way down below the Broadway Bridge have received a huge amount of attention. The city of Gladstone has 3 parks that were rebuilt through this fund, okay, totaling about 100 acres. They include Dahl Beach, the area right up by the Arch Bridge, which 99E passes through, And then, of course, Meldrum Bar. There's close to nearly 40 some acres down that area. City of Milwaukee has an interest in this now. Mayor Gamble, I think that's right. Mayor Gamble said, you know, my goodness, if Gladstone's getting these kind of improvements, why aren't we? He has Kellogg Creek. He has Kellogg Lake. He has a fish passage facility that doesn't work underneath 99E. He has education and interpretation desires for his city. They're now in the final stages of getting a $30 million project going in Milwaukee. Next slide. Okay, what we might get. Well, if we were to proceed with some of those identified areas and look at these resources coming to the city, being managed in concert with the city, but all the professional work done mostly by others, so it's not a new encumbrance of effort to city staff, could include trails, habitat, interpretation, that means education, kind of facilities, all sorts of things could happen, fishing, birding, and other sites for passive recreation could be part of the whole thing. Washington Street, believe it or not, is a very suitable area because everything on Washington Street drains to Clackman Cove. If there is effluent coming from the landfill, and that's not clear, it may actually have been mitigated for by now over time, it's draining through the aquifer. It could be a strategy of the mitigation funding too. Bioswales along Washington Street, bio art, all sorts of things like that. Metro South Transfer Station has a number of public improvements there that could be made. And of course, those 12 acres of wetlands I talked about. Next slide. Okay, here's some pictures of what's going on. This is Meldrum Bar's entry sign. By the way, their funding paid for a plastic lumber sign, my favorite material. Recycled plastic made into building materials. That sign is good for a long time. And here you'll see some of the improvements that have occurred there along the waterscape. Next slide. In Gladstone, Dahl Beach, I mentioned to you, has had a bunch of improvements made for fishing access so that the fishing access is not disturbing the environment, but actually giving people a better access to the fishing opportunity. In all of Gladstone, close to $30 million worth of improvements have occurred through this fund. Next slide. And this is, of course, another shot of Gladstone. I want to show you this because they had a boat ramp problem. We have a boat ramp problem. We have a great boat ramp at Sportcraft. We have a failing boat ramp at Clackman Park because the access to it is so difficult. You know what they did? By getting those agencies interested in their enhancement projects through mitigation, the agencies who said, no, we'll never dredge along Meldrum Bar and the Meldrum Slough boat ramp said, there's so many good habitat projects coming together here. We want to dredge that channel. That boat ramp is now 100% usable for the first time in 20 years because of them partnering through the mitigation projects. Next slide. And of course, here is City of Milwaukee, Kellogg Creek and Kellogg Lake. I went down there with the mayor here a few weeks ago and took a look at some of the areas there. I'd like to see my youth involved there like we are in Oregon City. And what I see are very primitive trails, very little vegetation. And he said to me, what's missing here? I said, you have a beautiful lake. You have a beautiful waterway called Kellogg Creek that comes through and then becomes this lake-like area. But your upland landscape looks terrible. And he said, boy, it sure does, now that you mention it. So a lot of the improvements there are going to have to do with building a beautiful park-like attitude along this asset. All right, so this is, we'll put one last slide here and I'm done. I hope I beat my time here. The North End District has these mitigation possibilities available. When mitigation funding comes in, Brownfield Funding, which is EPA federal money, can quite often accompany it if it's needed. That's another source of federal money. It can do improvements at Clackman Park, Clackman Cove, Washington Street, the landfill, as I mentioned, which I think is a real opportunity to see what was Oregon's worst landfill made into something more functional through this effort and also the efforts of the private development folks and so forth. So I just want to conclude with this, mention to you on Saturday, March 13th, I forgot to make this announcement earlier, I guess I should have. we're doing a big cleanup of Clackman Park, and the Bloom family, my favorite folks, are providing 5,000 bulbs to make the park bloom. And we are planting those in actually downtown Oregon City now, and also at the park. We're going to mulch with all your stuff from your homes. All that chipped up stuff. We're going to create trails right behind the park in the area around Clackman Cove. And then we're going to redo all the trails and mulching needs throughout the entire park with our stuff. You know, isn't that good? The Rotary Club is helping with this whole event. We got 40 junior ROTC folks coming, and then my crew of about 30 youth. So thank you for letting me share this with you. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions?
I don't have a question, but my hand is raised.
Go ahead.
This is Dee Dee Daltred. Jerry, I do not know why this whole city is not just jumping on this bandwagon. I've heard this
Well,
mitigation. Yeah, and actually, I heard Frank O'Donnell say, "Tony, get in line," and I don't think we are. This is incredible monies to help us move our city ecologically in such a forward motion and bring so much economy to our city that it is mind-boggling.
I spoke with James Graham today because he's our development director for the city, and I asked him how their conversations with the mitigation bank had gone, and Tony and he did meet with a mitigation bank. His comment to me was they were going to try to have an advisory vote from the public about urban renewal, whether the public like urban renewal or not. Oh, now they're saying, he told me today that probably they would just move forward council and urban renewal board, and in belief that people do like urban renewal. That's another subject, but they go hand in hand, by the way. And I said, whatever the case, there's other cities looking. Westland wants this real bad. Gladstone has already got it, and downriver from Westland is Lake Oswego. And
I'm sorry, Oregon City has snoozed and loosed. We did this at the end of the Oregon Trail and missed out on a ton of money. We cannot miss out on this because we are a super fund, especially around the old Rossman landfill.
Yeah.
Those wetlands are so important. That is an old flyway there for birds and nesting that it needs to come back. It's natural for it. Anyway, I will stop. Okay, we all know that I'm on this, and I don't.
I'm going to say,
and I will beat this
summary,
drum until the drum breaks.
It's a complex thing. It sounds too good to be true. And when I saw it happen in Gladstone and see how happy they are, and now Mayor Gamba, is going to do it in his city, we really should get in the. We're in the queue. Let's stay in queue and let's get this going, because we would be the biggest mitigation district. We in this area, the two rivers coming together.
We need to be the example.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Bob? Bob, I have a comment. I know Denise Beasley has her hand up as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Denise, why don't you go first?
Thanks. Jerry, how much money would be available to Oregon City for this project?
Okay, I can't answer that question empirically, but it's very interesting. When I asked the people that operate that mitigation bank that's locally used here for Gladstone's improvements, I said, the 30 acres you got in Gladstone, their use and access to it, what investment went in there? And they said 10 million. That's just as one example. The Cove's example is 50 acres of uplands and 55 acres of water. All around Washington Street, there's close to 500 acres in that area. So I don't know how to answer that question, except if we get in the queue, then the professionals will work with the city to figure out what is viable and what the agencies will support. The agencies are very important here because they want to say, yes, it's a good investment of that wildlife money, that fisheries and wildlife money. I believe we could see 100 million of value come from this throughout various areas. If we,
So we just need to get signed up for this? Is that what you're saying? We just need to sign up?
basically, with the city
Yes.
state staff has been tasked with signing an agreement, which is being refined right now with the mitigation bank representatives. And then this project can start moving forward. It would take a couple years to actually see the work on the ground. But
Who needs to get us signed up?
So Denise, can I speak? Actually, I might be able to give some update. What I can do for the CIC, I had a brief conversation with Pete Walter, who's our senior planner in Oregon City, but he's also the staff of the Natural Resource Committee. And he said that he would take a look and at the program and kind of the Portland status of the Portland Harbor funding, and can forward on some information that I can forward to the CIC this week to kind of see where the kind of current status of that mitigation bank is and the current status of the Portland Harbor funding and what Oregon City would need to do to get in line for any future funding. Because I'm not sure if all the work that had happened previously, may be from a previous funding source, and there may be future funding sources. So kind of trying to figure out how Oregon City can put herself in a good place. But Pete had offered to take a look and provide an update to the CIC.
Excellent.
Okay, so Jerry, where do you go from here?
Well, I would say my dog and pony show, but I call it the beaver and muskrat show. I'm going to take this to natural resources. I'm any group that I can present this to, I'm going to, only because I want to keep the dream alive. It sounds so good that you can't believe it could be true. Gladstone, I'd love to see the mayor over there, come on over here and talk to our mayor publicly at one of your public meetings about what it's done for them, because they are just amazed at the values that have accrued there that they could never afford to do themselves. So I guess what I will do is continue to try to encourage this thing to move forward. If anybody has a group that I can speak to, I'm happy to do that. But really, the ball's in the city's court right now. We don't want to lose out if we can move forward.
Mr. Chairman, can I add something to this? So it's a two-way street.
Go ahead, Denise.
From what I understand of where we are in the process, Jerry, is that the folks that have who are going to accept the project also have to accept the project. It's not that we sign up and we say, yeah, we want to do this. They have to agree too, and that's what I understand they're doing right now.
That is correct.
To see if this is a valid project for them to get involved in. Right. It's not like Oregon City, we just snap our finger and we sign up. So you left out that part.
Yeah. No, you're correct, Denise. What's happening is Tony is negotiating with Restore Cap is the name of the mitigation bank that has the 500 million available. And that's just part of what's available out of the Portland Superfund Trust Fund. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
So I'm trying to say is different groups have to get together to try to get this fund. It's not one group that has to go and get the fund. Different organizations have to get bits and pieces of fund.
The answer to that question is there are wetland mitigation funds that go into a different bank that can be accessed for wetland projects the city might have within its district. There is the Restore Cap fund, which has a lot more to do with major changes in the riverside banks and improvements to the riparian environment, things like that. And there, to be honest with you, there's, as Tony pointed out, there's 900 mitigation banks across our country where they've done this kind of thing in different places. Now, this is not like US Bank, not like Far West Federal or whatever. We're talking about where monies are assembled together and then others determine what the best use of those monies are. And that's what, as Denise was saying, is happening now, is that the Restore Cap folks, which represent a source of money that's been accumulated, are meeting with the city now to figure out what the best projects are that could move forward. The only thing they're doing right now is waiting to see what the public has to say about urban renewal. And I don't know what to tell you about that. My attitude is people like to see something getting done. So hopefully that's, the public will be supporting urban renewal. Urban renewal is different than this, but the two are similar in what they're trying to accomplish.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you, Jerry, and good luck going forward with this.
Appreciate being part of your group. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is item 6, reactivation of the neighborhoods. I've already gone through quite a bit of that as far as the number of people becoming involved in the neighborhoods. So now our next step is to help them get organized. Christina, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, one thing I would recommend, and this is done, and Amy may remember this from years past, and you may too, is I think maybe we had, one neighborhood help support a new neighborhood. So maybe there's something of South End or Hazel Grove, even Tower Vista and Hellendale. If there's active neighborhood associations who want to kind of help sponsor or support these new neighborhoods on how to set, how to get going, and recommendations for how to hold meetings or how to get out the word, that may be one thing that the CIC can do to help support these new groups. As they move forward and get their bylaws together and they notify the city, I'll put that information on the city's neighborhood website, and then as well as them making recommendations for CIC members to get appointed, but just in general, how to help these neighborhoods kind of start active meetings and gain new members, kind of looking onto our healthy neighborhood associations to provide some leadership and guidance would be great.
Okay, what I'll do is reach out to the chairs and the CIC representatives of their neighbor organizations and see if we can arrange meetings from that point.
Yeah, I know Amy raised her hand as well.
Oh, yes, Amy, go ahead.
I was just gonna say just to clarify, I think maybe I heard Christina wrong. They don't need to redo their bylaws. The bylaws are there, they're in place. They just need to follow the bylaws. So they just need to make themselves familiar with the bylaws and how it works. And
And
glad
vote
to
in
help.
officers and
glad to help in any way that if anybody, if they want to reach out.
Thank you, Amy. And Karen?
Amy just saved me a lot of oxygen, particularly South End, Hillendale, and Tower Vista, which I always want to call two towers for some reason, have not been inactive that long. They had existing bylaws. It's just helping them make sure they have them. And any records they need to recover from a prior secretary or chair, and move on from there. And yeah, Amy's available, I'm available. And someday we can all meet again together.
So this is Harold for Hazel Grove. So how do we get in touch with someone, or how do we connect with someone to help our little neighborhood get connected again?
And along with Harold is that this is Jody with Hazeldale. How do we go about forming that, and more information about what it entails for us to all do that? Thank you.
Well, this is Amy again. My contact information is under Gaffney Lane. It's also probably on the CIC. I'm not sure, but if you just want to email me, we can then go offline, and I'd be glad to meet up with you and show you and just talk with you, whatever you need.
Great, thank you.
I think a good step would be to arrange to have Zoom meetings for each of the neighborhoods and the people that I just read their names of, to get organization going. So would Would the city be able to help us with that, Christina?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
I think the next step may be to have Zoom meetings arranged for each of those neighborhoods to have the people that I mentioned tonight for each neighborhood to be involved in the Zoom meetings to get organization going.
Yeah, I can help set up a kind of an initial Zoom meeting from meet and greet, but I do know that some of the neighborhoods have now been using the one that Hillendale initially started out with. Kind of Keneba's used it too. So the kind of neighborhood association Zoom would be kind of on their own as a separate entity. I can do a one-time only meet and greet. I can do that offline via email, if that's helpful.
Yeah, okay, well, let's you and I get our heads together and see what we can come up with. Any other comments?
I have my hand raised. This is Carla Laws from
Oh,
Barclay
sorry,
Hills.
Carla, I see you there now. I missed it.
Sorry. I just wanted to invite the new neighborhoods that haven't had a meeting. Barclay Hills is having a meeting next Tuesday, and I could send them a link if they just want to watch and see what we do and how we coordinate. And if that's something they're interested in, I'm more than welcome to have them join us.
Well,
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Maybe Christina, could you send them my contact info on email, and then I can send them the link to our meeting?
I sure can.
Thank you so much.
And then Denise McGriff has her hand up as well.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, whatever I can do to help, don't hesitate to reach out to me, Hazel Grove. I think you guys said Hazel Dale, and I thought it was Hazel Grove Wrestling Farms. Anyway, you know what I can do. Since I'm liaison and I'm planning on attending everybody's neighborhood association meeting when I get the notice and they let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. I know that you've always been a very strong advocate of neighborhood associations and the CIC.
Absolutely.
Okay. Don't have any minutes tonight. So let's go to staff liaison updates. Christina?
Sure. Just one second. Let me scroll down. All right. The city has a Ice Storm 2021 resource page. So if any of your neighbors are asking questions about information related to the tree survey of trying to figure out how many street trees fell or city-owned trees fell, and also trees within just the city fell. We just finished up our last day on Sunday of the chip dump that was down at the Cove for Oregon City residents to bring their debris down. I've heard it's the last day, though there may be opportunities in the future. If there are, we will have them updated on the Ice Storm page. So check back to the website if there's any additional information. But really, I want to thank everybody. We, for such a hard ice storm that affected so many people, it was just really great to hear the spirit that the neighborhood had helping your neighbor. And thank you for your patience with all of our public works staff and park staff that were out the whole time trying to remove dangerous trees from the right of way and from parks. So thank you all for your patience and for, chipping in to help all your neighbors as well. We really appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions about the ice storm resources before I move on? Okay. As you all know, the Inactive Neighborhood Association letters went out early February, and Bob can attest, we had some great responses, and we're collecting all that information and coordinating all the people within their neighborhood associations to work together to start that up. That being said, if you still send people our way, if you talk to them about being involved with your neighborhood association, be it an active or inactive, we can forward them on. We are adding that to our trail news for the summer, as well as our monthly email, the monthly trail newsletter. We've added the blurb that's in the newsletter if you want to steal it for any of your social kind of outreach that you are doing. Finally, we're moving forward for monthly trail news trail news monthly newsletter. That's a lot of words together. We've heard from people that trail news is a great resource, but it only comes out quarterly. So we're trying to provide more timely updates through the e-newsletter. So I really encourage all neighborhood association members to subscribe, and you can get it through that link, but also to push it out to your contacts as well. The more we can get people subscribed to the e-newsletter, the more timely information we can get out to the community. And then finally, I have just in general, always how to find out about development applications in the city and how to request public information if you want information about a recent pre-application conference. So that is going to be always on my liaison report. If anybody has any question, you can always send people to any CIC agenda and it'll always be there in my liaison report. I'm available if anybody has any questions.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, the next item.
Do you want me to give a report at this point in time, Bob, or after the neighborhoods?
You go ahead and do it now, sure.
Okay, I'm going to turn on my camera. I'm actually in my, for those of you who don't know where, I'm in my kitchen right now. So, hi everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Denise McGriff, and I'm the City Commission liaison to the CIC. And I have a long history with the CIC. I was on it in a past life as the main person, and then as an alternate. I have been a neighborhood chair. I have worked for the city and been in charge of the neighborhoods that when we used to have 12 back in the pre-comp plan days of the late 90s. But what I wanted to report on is that, thank you, Christina, because I was hoping you were going to talk a little bit more about the ice storm resource. So as part of that, we recognized that there was some constraints by the community, and the city had an emergency meeting to waive the fee for the electrical hookup. Now, unfortunately, some people misunderstood what that meant, and they thought that if you were out of power that you had to get a permit to have your power hooked up. And we went back and read the website, and it was basically saying if your power had been disconnected from the pole, you needed to have it hooked up. And we were not encouraging neighbors to do that themselves because it's dangerous. We were able to get a waiver from the state of Oregon because it's really their permit. And then we were able to waive our permit as well, our permit fee as well. Just had to have an electrician file for it, and hopefully they got, they were able to pass that on to the consumer. So
Denise
also had, there were daily changes to the city's website. So if you have it on your phone, rather than your computer, you were able to get that. And we realized that not everybody in the city had power. I certainly didn't for part of the time myself, but my phone was still working for the most part. And I used up all my minutes early in the month. But that's neither here nor there. So we're still always looking for different ways to get information out to people. For those of you who are aware, the staff was everybody. Hands on deck was out. Even if you were an admin, people were volunteering their time to go out to spot neighborhoods where there were down power lines or tangled up in trees, and working at the chip center down there at the Cove. The one at the college got filled up very fast and there was no more room, so they've been chipping that. And hopefully that'll be put back into our parks because we need a lot of paths redone. And now Waterboard Park and Singer Creek Park are closed because of all the dangerous trees, but the city has hired a company to come in and help with that cleanup, because I have to tell you, the staff is a little worn thin right now, and some of them are taking some time off because 12 to 14-hour days is just really tough. The other thing that we have done in the meantime is that some of you were aware that we had part 3 of our goal setting session. Was 3 days of very long meetings, and I can tell you it's really different doing it online than in person. My preference was in person, but that wasn't going to happen. So we came up with 8 sort of general broad categories, and I can kind of tell you generally what they are, but there's still more honing down that needs to happen. So we talked about creating a goal that deals with resolution 2019, which dealt with inclusion, equity, and diversity. And then investing in our future and capital needs for safe infrastructure and city services, improving the city's engagement efforts to reach a broader Oregon City community, adopt and implement a homeless strategy for Oregon City, promote tourism and support economic development to foster community state sustainability, support diverse housing options, support improvements and partnerships that contribute to Oregon City's hometown feel and showcase Oregon City's unique community identity, and that, again, economic development, and then protect and preserve our environmental health and natural resources, which would also include development of possibly a climate action plan. That's a pretty heavy lift, and the city staff is going back and evaluating kind of what we came up with, and we may end up honing this down. I mean, 8 goals is a lot. We only had 5 in the last go round, and we plan to kind of parse these down one more time, I suspect. But there was a lot of good ideas that came out of this and things to do. One of the ones that's obviously near and dear to my heart is improving our community engagement efforts. And we're already doing a lot right now, but I know we can do more. And any additional ideas are out there. And I guess the thing I would say, speaking specifically to my neighbor, Dennis, is that I'm sorry you don't feel you're being represented, but feel free to call me anytime. I'm one of the few commissioners, I will say, that I do answer my phone, and I will call you back, and I'm happy to meet with you in person now that we can actually go meet someplace in person. And I would really be interested in talking to any of you about ideas that you have or criticisms that you have. I'm open to it. As Bob stated, my background is in citizen involvement and neighborhood associations. And I feel that I represent the entire city, not just the place where I live, because the place where I live is Oregon City. And that includes all the parts of Oregon City. Even that part by Division Street that I found out today is actually out of the urban growth boundary and not in Oregon City, but it has an Oregon City mailing address. But so I feel fairly comfortable in talking to people about issues, and I'm willing to take whatever it needs to be taken up the flagpole and talk to my fellow commissioners, or talk to the city manager and say, this is what I'm hearing in the community, and you need to know about this, and we need to do something about it. So I feel I'm pretty open. So you can get my contact information on the website, or if you see me, stop me. I'm always happy to stop and talk to somebody. And besides, the other thing is this is probably the best social interaction that I get these days, is running into people in the grocery store and talking to them 6 feet apart about what's going on in the city. So just thank you so much. And we'll be getting back to you about the goals. We do have a commission meeting on Wednesday, and looking forward to talking to all of you at some point in time. So give me a call, Dennis. Love to hear from you.
I appreciate it.
Denise, I have one clarification.
Yes, sir.
On the electrical permits.
Yes, sir.
The permit itself has not been waived. It's only the fee, correct?
No, you still have to get a permit to hook up your power. If your power line broke from the pole to your house, you need to get a certified electrician to work with you to hook that back up.
And that electrician
comes out and inspects it, but there is no fee, but you still have to apply for the permit.
That's right. I wanted to be sure everybody knew that.
Yeah, you still have to apply for the permit, but there is no fee. And people who have already paid the fee will be reimbursed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Any questions to Commissioner McGriff? Okay, with that, we'll move on to the roundtable. We'll start with Barkley Hills. Carla?
Yes, we are having a meeting next Tuesday, and our steering had decided to touch base with neighbors around, especially around I mean, neighbors in general, of course, but particularly touch base with Holmes and Mountain View and see where they're at, just because the last meeting we had, they felt underrepresented or, you know, just a little bit timid. So we just want to really warm up to that side of Barclay Hills and on top of all the community of Barclay Hills. We're going to give kind of just touch base and check in with everybody. We also are having the Oregon City 2040 survey done. And that's pretty much it. We're going to be touching base on, you know, current issues that were pending and just letting people know what's going on in the CIC and making sure that the neighborhood, you know, that we're just checking in with residents. So, and then maybe, you know, touch base on people, what they're struggling with right now with the weather and seeing, you know, I've been trying to kind of look on our Facebook page to see if anyone needs any help with anything or, you know, maybe neighbors reaching to neighbors. So that's it for Barclay Hills. Thank you.
Yeah, Kanima, Linda or Dennis?
You want to go first, Linda?
I'll go first. You can finish it. Kanima did not have a meeting in February. We were scheduled for the 18th, but the ice storm hit and Kanima was without power for 9 days, and we probably didn't have internet for 11 days. We're pretty hard down here. And I'm going to chime in with Dennis that after we got power and internet, there were services. We had no idea there were any type of services down here. We're a pretty tight community, and we were in charging people's phones and making coffee for each other and doing whatever we could to get people together. But we had no idea there was any type of city help available. So I guess you missed us. Your turn, Dennis.
The other issue that has become a soundboard within our neighborhood is that some of we had a reach out from the gentleman who's developing the cottage buildings. And his name is Christopher Staggs, for those who don't know. And he's been pushing on this thing from, I think, about 2016. So he's more than gone through the share of hurdles to accomplish his project. He's pretty much there. He's recently been waylaid by issues related to technicalities or some miscommunication. And he was reaching out to me, to the neighborhood, and finding some kind of common ground on like how we could probably mitigate the problems and to push forward on completion of his cottage buildings. So he's having to deal with issues related to small things that are coming before the Historic Review Board. And the distinction that I sort of see through his aggravation and grief is that, and also the attitude within the neighborhood of like, let's get this done, is like, we need some discretion. And if it's not so, we're getting to a point where it seems to be a moment of harassment on certain technicalities that I think could be ironed out and worked out. I mean, he's gone through most of this construction through the COVID problem, and the community wants to see it done. It puts a bad sign into the works of like people who come into the area and try to do a remodel or to create a new building. It's a difficult neighborhood at best. We have a diverse community of both out of period and historic buildings. And I think we want to bring it back together. We've been trying to do that for the last 7-8 years, and I think we've been successful. And we need the city help to allow this man to complete his project. And I think I'm one of the voices, not all. There's many people out there writing letters and stating the claim that I think we should like allow this man to complete his project. Of course, solving his problems or issues related to violations or whatever. But I mean, some of the bigger problems or some of the issues that he's confronting are really more of an annoyance than they are something that's going to be a deterrent to the greater good of this neighborhood. We don't want this man to go away. We don't want to lose this project. He's more than 3/4 done. But to put a stop order on allowing this man to finish the interior of his buildings at a time when he's trying to bring it to a completion is, I think, harassment. And Maybe I'm a little bit too sharp with that, but it's, I've heard enough of this. It's been going on for a number of years. He's jumped many hurdles. He's worked through the city in many levels, planning, historic review. The city was also involved with encouraging him to start this project and complete it. And I think it's been delayed by numerous things. And I think we need to put a positive foot forward and allow this man to complete his project. It's just my little moment of echoing it. And I want all the other neighborhoods to know that the city should support these kinds of endeavors, having satisfied many of the criteria that were required of this man. And that's my sentiment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Caulfield neighborhood, John.
I know it's hard to believe, we actually lost power out here for a few days, and that was a mess. We did have a meeting in January for the first time in many months, the Zoom meeting, but it went very well. We meet again on March 23rd to have another Zoom meeting, but we have our presenters all set up, and we're looking to have another meeting and get back to a normal routine, and still looking forward to the day that we can meet in person again. Neighborhood meetings in CIC, and hopefully in the next 6-8 months, maybe that could come together. It'd be really nice.
Thank you, John. Gaffney Lane, Amy.
So we had a steering committee meeting this month, went over some contacts and questions that we've had from neighbors and got answers from lots of different departments within the city. So that was neat. We've reached out to people who have, like Dennis, we have a couple developers who are really frustrated. And so reached out and working with them. So that's been nice. And I just wanted to kudos to the city public works guys working down at the Cove. That was just crazy. I'm thankful to Denise McGriff and Frank O'Donnell and John Lewis for their communication when I had questions and problems that were popping up. They were right there. That was helpful. We've got a ways to go. There's still a lot of miscommunication as far as some of the debris that's still around, and but I think I would love to see that cove open back up. We had a lot of people who in our neighborhood went out and pulled some of the street trees into their yards because they were trying to clear the roads and be helpful. But now the city crews come through, and because it's in the yard, they just keep on going. So we're hoping to we've reached out, and I know that that's something that's going to be addressed hopefully, because there's a lot of trees. And John did make the comment that, and I saw this too, just such great neighbors helping neighbors get things cleaned up. And so he made the comment that they'll get through the city a lot faster than they thought they would. So with that caveat, I'd like to encourage them to then come on back out again, and let's find the ones that probably could be picked up that they didn't realize. But yeah, I think it's great. I think it'll be nice I think they're going to do an after event, how things go, and some good can come out of that. But it was nice to know that there were people available to reach out when we needed to. It is bizarre, the pockets in even our neighborhood that people were out power for 9 days. Heard from a widow who had no heat, had no way to communicate. I felt like a heel that, I know I can't go knocking on everybody's door, but it made me feel so sad that I didn't know she needed help, and she's, I probably could have helped her. So looking for ways to reach out, like Dennis said, in times of crisis, when not everybody has a cell phone access to check their internet or news. So
thank you, Amy.
So we're doing good, looking for ways to help our neighbors.
Thank you, Amy. Hillendale, Eric Hopwood, are you with us tonight? Okay, McLaughlin, Denise Beasley, please.
Hi there. We had a steering committee meeting on February 4th. We were supposed to have a meeting this Thursday, but we had decided to delay it until March 18th because of the storm. And people are still catching up on stuff. So that's about it. That's all I have.
I hear that you have a new chair.
Yes, Jesse Buss is our new chair. Let's see. Cameron has the treasurer's position now, and I'm the secretary. So yeah.
Just about forgot, huh?
Oh, Bob, I
did,
forgot one thing after Denise. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Amy.
Sorry, Denise, I didn't mean to cut you off there. One thing that came out of our steering committee meeting, and I had proposed it to Christina, and I just wanted to mention it here, is when we talked last meeting about some of our neighborhoods were spammed via email, and it was proposed maybe the city could assign just like, glna@orcity.org or something, just for communication. And I'd like to encourage that. It would be nice if we could have something like that. And I don't see how it would be any different than having our information out there on the website.
Amy, can I respond, or Bob, can I respond to that from Amy?
Yes, go ahead.
So I did some research with Katie Riggs, and right now we only give City of Oregon city addresses to people who are appointed to city. Right now it's City Commission, Planning Commission, and Historic Review Board. And so since neighborhoods are not entities of the city, that's not necessarily an option. But one thing that Katie Riggs was able to do, if you go to the neighborhood association page, and sorry, I didn't put that in my liaison update, we now have you have to click to email. So the emails are not actually viewable on the website. You have to click into them. So I think the idea is your traditional spam bot can't get into it because they can't see it from the page. They have to click in. So it's one additional step we have that we're able to provide for the website for the neighborhood associations.
Okay, thank you. Denise, you were done, weren't you? Okay, Park Place, Steve Van Heverbeek.
So we had a general meeting last Monday, although it'd be tough to tell it from the turnout of the steering committee since it was via Zoom. We got an update from Sergeant Pagano and talked about the lowering of the speed limit on Holcomb, which was well received. And the Park Place welcome sign blew down during one of the storms, so we got that put back up. And the city did a great job of making that happen. All we had to do was pay for the replacement posts. One thing that the neighborhood is up in arms about is something to do with the Park Place Park. There's a right-of-way that has been indicated as going through the middle of the park, which can be used to access a lot that has just been sold and may be developed, and that would be the only access to it. So they're going to cut the park in half potentially. So we've asked for the city to come back and tell us what's going on.
Amen. Yes.
Or not. So let's see, we've got a steering committee meeting coming up on March 15th via Zoom.
Okay, and I'd like to thank Steve and Linda Van Haverbeek for their efforts to get that neighborhood sign put back up. They did all the groundwork to get it done, so thank you very much for that. Rivercrest, Karen Morey.
Okay, I've been feeling like, boy, I shouldn't whine. I was out for 72 hours. My son was able to keep my phone charged in his vehicle. I do think the police department with their generator should have thrown me an extension cord, but they didn't. Rivercrest Park has had some losses, as have the many houses in the neighborhood. And boy, it doesn't pay to be somebody who's somebody. The Lindquists and the Norrises were probably out of power the longest of anybody in our neighborhood, but everybody's back in power. I really want to thank the city. Fast getting out information on assessing trees and documenting what you lost. No threats, you have to run right back out and plant a new tree. Fast response to the permit on the reconnecting your electricity. Excellent response from the city through this whole thing, and we've been keeping people informed on Facebook. We're staying in touch by phone. We still haven't tried to meet or try Zoom or anything else, since the majority of our participants are not quite that age, or interestingly are not really technologically interested. So we stay in touch through Facebook, we stay in touch by phone. And Dennis, I second everything you said. And I don't know, Christina, if this has been shared before, but the compatible change open house and the 2 surveys, has that gone out to everybody? Christina?
Oh, sorry. I was writing it down. The compatible change, actually, I just got an email from Kelly Reed late last week. So my goal is to send out to the CIC the survey on the compatible change project, which is looking at when review would be kicked in for non-designated structures in McLaughlin, and when historic review would be required for public improvements in both historic districts.
Okay, and I just noticed that in today's e-trail news, the link in the body of the email actually doesn't work.
Okay.
The link in the header does. But yeah, keep an eye out for that. I took part in the open house, and it's good information and a good place to be able to give some input on new construction and additions in the 2 historic districts. And that's it from Rivercrest.
Okay, let's see here. Tower Vista, is Jeff Aiken in attendance?
I am. Hello.
Any
Not a lot
updates on Tower Vista?
Yeah, not a lot to report. We have our first general membership meeting in about 2.5 years coming up on April 6th. And we're partnering with Hillendale on that. And so the newly elected chair there, Eric, and I are starting to put together a mini steering committee to start as we breathe life back into this and planning the agenda. Going to get some good stuff put together and start reaching out to some of the great, the wealth of knowledge on this group to start giving us some input on promoting and making sure that we can get a well-attended kickoff to our revived neighborhood association.
Great, Jeff. We appreciate your efforts out there, and we look forward to your both your neighborhood's nominations for people to represent you on the CIC.
Thanks, Bob. We actually already have a couple of people who've expressed interest, so I think we'll have a fast path.
Have to be sent to the city. I believe the city. Would that be sent to you, Christina?
Actually, it would be sent to Katie Riggs. You can CC me, but our city recorder, Katie Riggs, is the person who would forward on that request to our city commission.
Perfect.
And I was going to say Katie Riggs, but then I thought maybe it would go through you first. Anyway, yeah, send that info to Katie Riggs and we'll get you aboard, by golly. Great. Okay, next on the list is Tony Conkle. Tony in attendance.
I don't believe Tony is in attendance this evening.
Okay. Anybody that I missed?
Bob, actually, if it's okay, I have a update of kind of my to-do list to make sure that I'm not missing anything from our conversations today.
Yeah.
So this is my to-do list, and let me know if I've missed anything. Per Karen, I'll send out a link to the compatible change survey. Valencia will email me her contact information, and I'll send that to the group so you kind of know her email and how to get a hold of her. I'll reach out to Pete Walter, our senior planner, who can provide some updated information from Jerry Herman's presentation. I'll provide the newly active neighborhood people that have come this evening Carla Law's email, and she can send off a link to their Berkeley Hills Neighborhood Association's meeting coming up if you want to attend. Amy, I'll just circle back as well with Public Works about what to do about street debris that kind of got on people's property and how Public Works can see if they can help out with that.
Thank you.
And I think that is all I have. So let me know if you have anything else, and I know I'll work with Bob offline to see how we can best coordinate our new neighborhood associations to connect up with all the experience within our active neighborhood associations.
Okay, thank you. And if there are no other comments, now
I've got one, Bob. This is Steve.
Yes, go ahead, Steve.
We went through Park Place Park, and it looks like our new playground equipment was damaged by falling trees. And we haven't even been able to hold our grand reopening of the park. So fortunately, it wasn't bad, but oh well.
I think we probably need to go to the Parks Department and see about getting it repaired, huh?
Yeah, well, hopefully it's new enough that replacement parts are available.
I would hope so, with the amount of money.
We have insurance, Steve.
Yeah, let Parks know about it.
Yeah.
Did Jeff Aiken say that their meeting was going to be on April the 5th?
6.
6, okay. Because I was looking at April the 5th and I said, oh, that's CIC. So thank you.
Okay, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you, Bob.
Bye, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Take care, guys.
Good job, John.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.